Have you ever found yourself sitting completely frozen, staring into space, feeling like you are fighting a losing battle that you were somehow destined to fail from the very start? Think about those heavy nights when you find yourself sitting on the edge of your mattress in a pitch-black room, looking down at your worn-out hands, feeling the silence of the house weighing down on you, and genuinely questioning if any of this effort even matters anymore. It is a very specific, lonely kind of exhaustion. It is that exact crushing moment when the sheer weight of your daily life, your responsibilities, and your unfulfilled dreams feels so incredibly massive that just lifting your head to face the next morning feels like a mountain you cannot climb. You are standing right there on the absolute precipice of throwing in the towel for good. You are completely ready to pack away your deepest hopes, close the book on your hard work, and just walk away from the very things you have spent months, or maybe even years, crying, sweating, and praying over. The weariness has seeped deep into your bones, and the sky above feels like brass, as if every prayer you send up just bounces right back down, leaving a deafening, painful silence. You feel entirely trapped, thoroughly convinced that there is no possible way forward, that every single door has been permanently dead-bolted, and that your life's journey has finally sputtered out at a bitter, hopeless dead end. But let us pause right there for a second, because I want you to consider a completely different reality. What if this heavy, suffocating darkness is actually not the final chapter of your story? What if this profound, aching sense of total defeat is not a sign that you have failed, but rather a clear, unmistakable indicator that something much larger, something divine, is shifting right behind the scenes where you cannot see it yet? Right now, at this exact moment, while you are listening to these words, you might actually be standing directly on the doorstep of a massive spiritual breakthrough. It is a strange paradox, but when you feel like you are completely spent, when you are looking at your life and saying, "I cannot take even one more step," that is precisely the moment when the unseen world begins to move on your behalf. God rarely leaves us without tracking our pain, and He often drops very subtle hints, quiet whispers in your spirit, and undeniable warnings right before the tide turns. He places these little divine checkpoints along your rough path to tell you to stop your surrender. He is gently but firmly warning you not to walk away from the field right now, because what looks to your human eyes like a solid, permanent brick wall is actually just a temporary test of your resolve before the miracle finally shows up. Just think about the absolute heartbreak of walking away when you are only inches from the finish line. Imagine a traveler who has been trudging through a scorching, endless desert for days, feet blistered, throat burning with thirst, and physical strength entirely gone, who finally decides to just lie down in the sand and quit, completely unaware that a beautiful oasis with fresh water is sitting right over the very next sand dune. That is exactly what happens in our lives when we allow absolute despair and temporary fatigue to make our permanent decisions for us. This message reaching you right now is your divine warning sign. It is a clear, compassionate, and deeply personal note sent directly to your soul today to tell you to just hit pause, take a breath, and look around before you do anything drastic. Do not let the intense, blinding pain of this current season cause you to walk away from the beautiful destination that has been prepared for you all along. Stay right here with me. Let the noise of the world fade into the background, and let your heart really absorb these truths, because the breakthrough you are looking for is so much closer than you think. I know exactly what that heavy place feels like, and I want you to hear me when I say that the pain you are carrying right now is completely real, completely valid, and you do not have to apologize for being tired. It is so incredibly easy for well-meaning people on the outside, folks who aren't sleeping in your bed or paying your bills, to casually tell you to just stay positive, keep a smile on your face, or just have more faith. But those people do not feel the physical ache that settles into your chest the moment your eyes open every morning, knowing you have to face the exact same unresolved messes. They do not see the quiet tears that catch you off guard when you are driving home alone from a long day, or when you are sitting in a quiet kitchen after everyone else has gone to sleep, wondering how on earth your life became so complicated and overwhelming. You have been playing the part of the strong one for such a long time, holding the entire household together, putting on a brave face for your children, smiling through the stress at your workplace, and pretending to everyone else that you have it all figured out, while deep down inside, your soul is absolutely crying out for just a moment of rest. Let us sit down and talk directly to the exhausted believer who is watching this today. You are the person who has done everything by the book. You have been faithful week after week, month after month, and for some of you, year after grueling year. You have spent more nights than you can count on your knees by your bedside, pouring out your soul until you ran out of words, begging for a breakthrough, pleading for a child to come home, asking for a body to be healed, or praying for a marriage to be saved. You know the scriptures by heart, you listen to the worship music, and you have tried your absolute best to live a clean, honest life that honors God. But when you look at your actual daily reality, it feels like nothing ever shifts. In fact, if you are being completely honest, it feels like the more you pray, the harder the wind blows against you. The bank accounts keep draining, the health reports do not get any better, and the family tension just stays thick in the air. You are completely exhausted from waiting on a promise that seems to never arrive, and that silence from heaven has started to feel a lot like a personal rejection. You are beginning to harbor that quiet, painful doubt, wondering if God even notices your tears anymore, or if your prayers are just getting lost in the clouds. Then there is the person listening to my voice who is carrying a deeply broken heart. You are dealing with the sharp, unexpected sting of a sudden rejection, the heavy, hollow grief of a major loss, or the crushing disappointment of having a door slammed in your face just when you thought you were finally making progress. Maybe you poured your entire heart, your absolute best years, and your hard-earned savings into a business venture, a career opportunity, or a relationship that you felt absolutely certain was your true destiny. You had no doubt in your mind that this was the one, but instead of the beautiful future you envisioned, you were hit with a sudden betrayal, an unexpected layoff, or a cold ending that left you completely blindsided and picking up the pieces. Now you find yourself standing in the middle of a ruined plan, looking at closed doors that feel incredibly unfair and cruel. You feel rejected not just by a person or a company, but by life itself, and that specific kind of disappointment makes you want to build a high wall around your heart, close your eyes to the world, and never care about anything that deeply ever again just to keep yourself safe from hurting like this. And we cannot forget the soul who is just completely drowned out by the sheer volume of daily burdens that feel far too heavy for any single human being to carry alone. You are dealing with that constant, low-grade financial anxiety that keeps you tossing and turning at 2 in the morning, staring blankly at the ceiling while your mind runs through numbers and bills that simply do not add up. You are managing emotional weights, a heavy spirit, or family duties that seem to suck every single ounce of energy out of your body before noon. You feel like you are out in the middle of a rough ocean, treading water with everything you have, and every single time you manage to get your head above the surface to catch a quick breath of air, another massive wave comes out of nowhere and pushes you right back under. You look around for someone to lean on, but it feels like everyone is leaning on you instead, expecting you to provide the answers, the money, and the strength, while you have absolutely nowhere to lay your own head. I want you to take a deep, slow breath right now. Your exhaustion is completely seen. Those quiet cries in the dark are heard. You are not crazy for feeling like you cannot do this anymore, and you are absolutely, definitely not alone in this valley. When you find yourself at this absolute rock-bottom point of human exhaustion, you have to realize that the spiritual atmosphere around your life becomes incredibly active. God does not just leave you to wander in the dark without any direction when things get this critical. He actually starts to show very specific, clear signs in your daily life to warn you against walking away. We need to look closely at these 6 signs together, step by step, so you can begin to see them operating in your own life right now. The very first sign you will notice is a sudden, unusually intense wave of resistance. You will find that just when you make up your mind to try one more time, or just when things seem to be calming down a bit, a massive obstacle hits you out of absolutely nowhere. The car suddenly breaks down on the way to an important meeting, an ugly argument sparks over nothing at home, or a financial emergency pops up out of the blue. Why does this happen? The spiritual mechanics are actually very straightforward. The enemy always fights the hardest when you are closest to your finish line. If your breakthrough was miles away, there would be no need for the darkness to waste its best weapons on you. What this friction really means is that your quiet persistence is actively causing panic in the spiritual realm. The heavy pushback you are experiencing right now is not proof that you are failing or on the wrong track. It is the ultimate confirmation that you are standing right on the border of breaking through your longest struggle. The second sign is a strange, quiet sense of inner peace that completely defies the chaos around you. Your external world could be entirely messy, your bank accounts could be lower than they have ever been, and your life might look like a total disaster on paper, yet deep down in the quietest part of your soul, there is a stillness that you cannot quite explain. This is what supernatural comfort looks like. It happens because God is actively breathing His presence into your spirit to keep your heart anchored, so you do not drift away in the middle of the storm. What it means is that your deep spirit already knows a truth that your logical, worrying brain cannot comprehend yet. It is that peace that passes human understanding, serving as a divine shield to protect you from making a hasty, permanent choice based on a temporary moment of panic. The third sign comes through repetitive reminders and what people like to call strange coincidences. You will notice that no matter where you drive, what you watch, or who you talk to, you keep bumping into the exact same message over and over again. You might turn on the radio in your car, and a song comes on that describes your exact life story. You scroll through your phone, and a specific old scripture appears on your screen 3 times in one day. A neighbor or a complete stranger might walk up to you and say a random phrase that perfectly answers a question you only whispered to God in private. Why does this happen? It is because God is trying to get through to you past the noise of your worry. He is broadcasting His encouragement on every single channel around you, trying to break through your anxiety. It means you are being watched very closely, and God is essentially shouting through your surroundings to tell you to just hold on a little bit longer. The fourth sign is a distinct season of isolation, which the scriptures often call the wilderness experience. You might suddenly feel like your closest friends have become distant. Doors that used to be open are now firmly shut, and you are completely on your own in this fight. This happens because God is intentionally clearing out human distractions and external crutches from your life for a brief moment. He is setting up a quiet space where you cannot rely on your family's money, your friends' advice, or your own clever intellect to get out of the situation. What this truly means is that God wants to become your primary source of strength and provision. He isn't isolating you to punish you or push you away. He is isolating you to prepare you, making absolutely sure that when the miracle finally lands, all the credit and all the glory belong to Him alone. The fifth sign is a deep, stubborn inner conviction to hold on, even when every single piece of logic tells you it is foolish to do so. Your mind will look at the cold, hard facts of your situation and tell you that it is over, that you are just wasting your time, and that you need to cut your losses and walk away. Yet, every single time you actually resolve to throw in the towel and give up, there is this tiny, quiet, persistent voice deep in your heart that whispers, "Not yet. Just try one more time. Wait a little bit longer." This happens because the Holy Spirit is actively working inside your soul, holding up your faith when your own human willpower has completely run dry. What it means is that your ultimate destiny is far too valuable to be abandoned, and God refuses to let your temporary physical tiredness ruin His permanent plan for your life. The sixth and final sign is when doors begin to close automatically and completely out of your control. You might try everything in your power to make a certain situation work. You might beg a person to stay, or you might do everything right to get a specific job, and it just falls apart anyway. Why does this happen? This is actually God's aggressive, protective love in action. He is shutting doors that lead to places that would eventually break you, and He is removing people whose influence would ruin the beautiful future season He is preparing for you. What this means is that a closed door is never a rejection from God. It is simply a divine redirection. He is clearing the path, getting rid of the clutter, and forcing you to look away from the wrong things, so that you are completely ready to step into the massive, right opportunities He is about to open up for you. Now that you can see these signs clearly in your life, the big question is, how do you actually live this out tomorrow morning without feeling completely overwhelmed by it all? When you are already running on empty, the last thing your spirit needs is a long checklist of heavy, complicated religious chores to do. You simply do not have the emotional strength for a massive lifestyle overhaul right now. This is exactly why we need to focus on what I call the 1% faith shift. Instead of begging God for an immediate, earth-shattering miracle to drop from the sky and fix 20 years of problems in 1 second, your focus should be on making incredibly small, quiet adjustments in your daily routine that protect your peace and keep you moving forward. The very first micro-shift starts with the words that come out of your mouth. Words carry an incredible amount of weight, both spiritually and mentally. When we are exhausted and beaten down, we naturally start speaking defeat over our own homes and futures. We say things without thinking like, why does something always go wrong for me? Why am I always the unlucky one? Why does everyone end up leaving my life? You need to take those exact phrases and shift them just a tiny bit. Change the question from, why is this terrible thing happening to me? To, what is God trying to teach me through this? What kind of strength am I gaining from this heavy season? This tiny change shifts you out of the mindset of a helpless victim and places you into the position of a student of destiny. It changes the way your brain processes stress, allowing you to see your current struggle as a classroom rather than a graveyard. The second micro-shift is a simple daily habit called the 5-minute surrender. Every single morning when you wake up, before you reach over to grab your cell phone, before you check the news, and before you let the heavy anxieties of the day rush into your mind, just sit on the edge of your bed in absolute silence for exactly 5 minutes. Open your hands flat on your knees, look up toward heaven, and say a very simple, honest prayer. God, I cannot handle the weight of this day on my own strength. I am tired, and I am weak today. I am handing over my worries, my bills, my children, and my future into your hands for the next 12 hours. Please guide my feet and give me your strength, because I don't have enough of my own. By doing this, you are letting go of the heavy baggage before you even step out of your bedroom, making sure you aren't walking out into the world carrying a burden you were never built to hold. The third micro-shift is to start keeping track of the small blessings to build your own personal faith resume. When depression and fatigue settle in, our minds suffer from a kind of spiritual forgetfulness, where we completely block out every good thing God has ever done for us in the past. To fight back against this, get yourself a cheap little notebook, or just open a blank note on your phone. Write down every single small win, an unexpected $5, a beautiful sunrise, a comforting text message from an old friend, or just a random moment of quiet peace during a stressful day. When the temptation to quit becomes so loud that you can taste it, do not look at your current problems. Instead, open up that notebook and read through the real written evidence of God's past goodness to you. It is a practical reminder to your soul that the very same God who carried you through yesterday's storm is completely capable of pulling you through today's valley. To really understand how these spiritual principles play out in the real world we live in, let me share a story about a man named David. David was an incredibly decent, hard-working family man who spent over 7 years of his life building up a small neighborhood business from scratch. He had poured every single penny of his life savings, countless sleepless nights, and his absolute best creative energy into this dream. He truly believed in his heart of hearts that this business was his divine purpose, the way he would provide a comfortable life for his children, take care of his aging parents, and help out folks in his local community. But then, completely out of nowhere, a massive economic downturn hit his town. Within just a few short months, costs skyrocketed. Old customers stopped walking through the door, and his business debts began to accumulate until they were a mountain he couldn't see over. David did everything humanly possible to keep his dream alive. He took on extra part-time work, spent 18 hours a day at his desk, and cut his own personal lifestyle expenses down to the absolute bone. Yet, despite every single frantic thing he tried, the situation just kept getting worse day by day. One rainy Tuesday evening, David found himself sitting at his desk with the lights dimmed, surrounded by final utility shut-off notices, overdue supplier bills, and scary legal letters. He was a completely broken man. He felt like an absolute failure as a husband, a father, and a provider. He finally picked up his office phone, dialed his lawyer's number, and asked him to go ahead and prepare the final bankruptcy liquidation papers for the next morning. He was completely out of options, out of energy, and he had decided to just give up on everything. As David locked up his office and walked out into the cold, dark parking lot, his mind spinning with dark thoughts of despair and shame, he ran into an elderly man who worked as the night security guard for the building. This old guard, whom David had barely exchanged more than a quick nod with over the years, stopped walking, looked David directly in his tired eyes, and said something that shook David to his very core. "Son, I don't know what kind of heavy trouble you are dealing with inside that office tonight, but you need to remember that the absolute darkest part of the whole night happens right before the sun comes up. Do not sign away what God gave you the strength to build." David just stood there frozen in the pouring rain. It was the third time that week he had encountered that exact phrase about the darkness before the dawn. He recognized it immediately for what it was, a divine warning sign sent straight from God. David went home that night, but he didn't sign those papers. Instead of giving up the next morning, he decided to give God just 48 hours more. He practiced his 1% faith shift, completely surrendering the final outcome of his life's work into God's hands. That very afternoon, entirely out of the blue, an executive from a larger company who had been quietly watching David's unique business model months ago reached out to him. The executive offered a massive partnership agreement that not only wiped out every single penny of David's business debt, but also gave him the financial backing to expand his business across the entire state. If David had let his extreme exhaustion make the choice for him on Tuesday night, he would have signed away his entire future less than 24 hours before his miracle arrived. His life is living proof that just holding on through one more dark night can completely rewrite the rest of your story. Think about the great prophet Elijah in the Old Testament. Elijah had just experienced one of the greatest spiritual victories of his entire life on Mount Carmel, but immediately afterward, a wicked ruler threatened his life. In an instant, fear, physical exhaustion, and a heavy spirit of deep depression hit this powerful man of God. Elijah ran for his life deep into the hot, lonely desert, collapsed under the shade of a solitary broom tree, and literally prayed for God to let him die. He said, "I have had enough, Lord. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." He was completely done with his calling, done with his ministry, and done with his life. He was ready to give up on everything he had ever known. You have to remember that God's clock operates on a completely different level than our human schedules. We live in a world where we expect everything to happen instantly, and we want our prayers answered by yesterday. But God is an eternal planner. He isn't just interested in fixing your current comfort. He is using this season to build your inner character, strengthen your spiritual muscles, and make sure your shoulders are wide enough to carry the massive blessing He is preparing to give you. When He seems to be delaying, it is never because He is denying you. It is a period of divine preservation, making sure you don't step into a blessing before you have the maturity to keep it. Trust His heart, rest your mind in His promises, and know that what He has spoken over your life will never fail to come to pass. If this message found its way into your heart today, and if you felt the quiet warmth of God's reassurance breaking through your current darkness, I want you to take one small, immediate step to claim this truth for your life. Go right down to the comment section below this video and type out the words, "I will not give up." Let that simple comment be your line in the sand, your public declaration to the world that you are going to stand your ground. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can keep receiving these quiet moments of spiritual guidance and daily encouragement to keep your faith strong. And please, take a second to share this video with a friend, a family member, or anyone in your life who you know might be secretly hurting and tired today. Thank you so much for sitting down and listening to me. Keep your head up, and never forget that God knows exactly where you live, and He is always with you.